Hey guys, back at the shop again. So, doing a little bit of diagnostic work. I'm working with a couple of guys on the forum who are giving me some pointers, and I'm trying to figure this deal out. So, long and short, if I run the engine, the hydraulic system will pressurize for the brakes, right? The wheels will spin. Wheels will actually spin in neutral, but I think that's a different problem. But the wheels will spin until I apply the brake. When I apply the brake, they lock up, and then the calipers won't release. Okay, and so here's what I'm finding. So the calipers have two bleed screws, right? So you can see one at the top and another one there at the bottom, right? The bleed screw on the top barely has any fluid coming out of it. Okay, well, that's regardless of whether the engine's on or the engine's off, right? The bleed screw on the bottom is under serious pressure even with the engine off. So, if I have the engine turned off, I can leave this car for maybe 3 or 4 days, come back, and if I crack open that bleed screw, it would squirt fluid all over the place. So on a suggestion of somebody on the who was watching my YouTube videos, they said that they ran into a similar problem, and what they did is they removed the bleed screws one at a time and then ran the engine and applied the brakes. So I did that, and I didn't see a huge amount of pressure, but there was a decent run of volume, decent amount of fluid that was coming out of the system. So that's definitely the system is definitely getting fluid to the calipers. It's just not releasing. So what I did next is I removed the what they call the G valve, which is the little. It kind of looks a bit like a master cylinder that's sitting here. So give me a second, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to mount the tripod because I'm just about to take it apart. Alright guys, so this is where I am. I've got the little G valve. It's mounted right here on my bench, on my vise, and I didn't have a 36mm socket, which is what I was hoping to use on this thing. So I just used, an adjustable wrench and then a hammer, and I just knocked it, and I was able to break it loose. So this is basically where we're at. And I'm going to basically start working this loose. I don't know, I've got to do this in such a way that you guys see what the heck I'm doing, otherwise there's absolutely no value in this. So let me turn this around. Don't put too much pressure on it, but okay, so now this thing is pretty much loose. I think I can take it loose by hand. I'm not sure if there's a spring in here it's going to go flying or anything crazy like that. It looks okay. Alright, so what have we got? We've got this deal over here, which is basically a nozzle. It's got some O-ring on it. Rubber O-ring, doesn't look like anything special, just a regular round O-ring. Then behind it there's a piston, and I'm guessing that this thing's supposed to do something. So is it supposed to come out? I'm not sure. So come and take a look at this. See, well, there you go, you can see it. Right. So there's got to be more to it than this, right? There's this deal over here, and then there's this deal, and I'm guessing that this thing is supposed to move backwards and forwards, and it's not. So, not sure what the story is here, what's causing that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to get this freed up. Maybe I'll use a socket and just tap it with a hammer and see what it does. See if I can break it loose. So let me get a socket and an extension, and then I'll just get away with just a socket. Good old 19mm. Okay. Alright, so this thing, okay, so it is starting to move now. So let me get some brake clean, because before I hit it with brake clean, I'm a little bit concerned that there may be some okay, so it's spinning. Does it screw off? Maybe it screws off, I'm not sure. Doesn't look like it screws off. Find another pick. I need more appropriate one. And this one. It's got a little bit of a hook to it. Ah, there you go. Okay. So what have we got here? Alright, we've got this thing over here. So that goes. Okay, so everything's going upside down. So this thing was facing the valve, so I'm just going to put it down here like this. And then behind it, there's a ball bearing. Big ass ball bearing. So, and it looks like it's being held in by something. Nope, it's not being held in by anything. So there's a ball bearing. Is that a ball bearing? There's a ball bearing. Alright. Is there any... Okay. Now I'm not sure. Okay. So it's real nasty in here, look. You see that? But it looks like there's a rubber doodad in there, and I'm not sure if I can get it out without ruining it. I don't know whether I can get it out, so I'm not going to. Alright, so let me just get out of the way, get out of the way of the camera. I'll quote this thing with brake clean. Basically, I can't get this rubber piece out, but I don't know whether I need to. And if I do, then I'll just do it and, you know, take it apart and put it back together again. Or put it back together again, and then if it leaks, then I'll take it back apart again. But what I do need to do is just make sure that I do clean it out. Alright, so guys, what do you think? I don't know whether you can see it well enough, but it's you know, I've gotten rid of any of the gunk that's in there. Let's move this down so you guys can see what the heck I'm doing. Alright, so now we've got this thing. I go through brake clean like it's going out of fashion, but it is such good stuff. Alright, so I don't know whether you saw this earlier on, but it was caked in like a black goo, which I'm assuming is old rubber that's just like deteriorated from the brake hoses. But it's good now. So I need to put the ball bearing in. So completely forgot about that. There you go. There's one I prepared earlier. That goes in there. Now that goes in there. I'm gonna get some castor oil and smear it on the outside. And this way. Very gently. There you go. That's it. I'm going to get brake clean all over the O-ring, so that could expand it and cause problems. So make sure it's clean. Take this O-ring. Pretty thick O-ring, but nothing really special about it. Look at that. Nothing really that special. And I'm just gonna tighten this out. I'm not gonna tighten it up as much as it was before. I mean, it was really on there, but I'll tighten enough where I feel comfortable that it won't leak. And it's screwed on at the end of the day. No force on the vise. Okay. Okay. So everything's kind of all I really did is just take it apart and put it back together again. Right. So just take it apart, cleaned it, put it back together again. I don't know how much brake fluid I have left. I'm going through tons of brake fluid. But what I'm going to try to do is I'm just going to try to put this thing back together again and let's see what happens. And the chances are still going to have the same problem because that seems like every single step I take forward, I end up taking 2 steps backwards, but we'll try it. And I'll get back to you. Alright guys, so the G-valve is back on. It's everything is bolted back together again. I've been using the good stuff over here for brake fluid. It's Walmart's own brand. It comes like $14 I don't know, a gallon or something like that. But it's cheap and cheerful. But I've so far used 2 gallons trying to figure out what the heck's going on, which means there's about 2 gallons of brake fluid on my concrete floor. Switching over to this stuff now, which is pretty expensive. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill it up. Hopefully everything will work, but there's no guarantees. I'm pointing the camera at the wheel so you guys can see it. So usually what I'll do is I'll fill it up. I'll add a little squish of castor oil. I'm not measuring it out right now because I'm just adding and then kind of flushing. I know that the rat trap has to come down because that distribution valve that I took apart and cleaned, not the G valve but the one in the last video, is leaking a little bit. You can see it's just dripping slightly, so that crush washer that goes over the big bolt on the back obviously isn't doing its job, and I need to get that taken care of. So I'll take care of that, but for now we're just going to test it, see what happens, and hopefully everything will work, but probably not, because it just hasn't so far, and I've been doing this for the last 6 months. Turning much of that money. Alright. I don't know whether you can see that. So that's not a good sign already, because it looks like it's already, that was spinning a second ago and it's locked up now. See that? The engine's off. I undo the... See how it's under pressure? Same on the other side. So, still doing what it's doing, which I don't get. What I'm concerned about is that some of these steel lines, not these ones, these are the ones I made, but the ones going to the G valve, I think one of them has already been replaced, and I don't know whether it was put together correctly. So I need to, the next thing I need to do is just trace those and make sure that everything's on correctly. But I'm kind of at a loss right now, not sure exactly what's left. But you know, you saw for yourself right now, it's system's still pressurized. I was talking to a gentleman called Ted on the forums, on the Rolls Royce forum. He says that the top one's circuit 1 and the bottom one's circuit 2, and circuit 1's supposed to be pressurized. In my case, it's circuit 2 that's always pressurized. Circuit 1 doesn't really do anything. I just tested that earlier on. I undid that bleeder screw, then I undid that bleeder screw just to see what was going on when and I ran the engine, applied the brakes. This one really didn't dribble that much, but this one was pretty heavy. Same applies for the other side. So you tell me. All right. Thanks very much for your input. A lot of people are providing good feedback, so I really do appreciate it on the videos. Please give me as much of your opinions as you can, because this is all new to me and I'm trying to learn it. But thanks for your time. Ah, good boy. Good boy, Benny.